The Pioneers, 1980s to early 1990s. The first name that always comes up is the fabulous Moolah. For decades, she was synonymous with women's wrestling. Moolah held the WWF Women's Championship for a combined 28 years. She trained dozens of women, controlled the women's circuit, and became the first woman inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 1995. But her legacy is complicated. Behind the accolades are allegations of exploitation and control over her trainees. Still, her impact on WWE history can't be erased. If Moolah was the establishment, Wendy Richter was the revolution. Aligned with pop star Cyndi Lauper during the 1980s rock and wrestling connection, Richter brought mainstream eyes to women's wrestling. Her battles with Moolah were a key part of WrestleMania's early success. She became the face of women's wrestling for a brief but explosive run. Then came sensational Sherri Martel. A fiery competitor in the late 80s, Sherri held championships, but her greatest influence was as a manager. She added legitimacy to whoever she stood beside, from Randy Savage to Shawn Michaels. As a wrestler and character, Sherri was unmatched in intensity. And of course, Alundra Blaze, also known as Medusa. In the early 90s, she brought a new style of athleticism. She was one of the best pure workers of her era, delivering quality matches at a time when the women's division was often sidelined. But her biggest moment of infamy came in WCW, when she threw the WWF Women's Championship into a trash can live on TV. That act symbolized just how overlooked women's wrestling had become in WWE at the time. The Attitude Era and early 2000s. By the late 90s, WWE entered the Attitude Era. Edgy, wild, and sometimes controversial, women's wrestling became a mix of athletic contests and over-the-top storylines. The biggest trailblazer of this era was Chyna. Nicknamed the ninth wonder of the world, Chyna wasn't just wrestling women. She was facing men. She became the first woman to compete in the Royal Rumble, the first to hold the Intercontinental Championship, and she broke barriers that nobody else had even approached. Chyna redefined what women could do in WWE. Then there were the two names that carried women's wrestling into a new spotlight: Trish Stratus and Lita. Trish started as a fitness model, but through hard work, she became a 7-time women's champion and one of the most respected stars in WWE history. Her rivalry with Lita is still remembered as one of the best in WWE history. Lita brought something different: high-flying daredevil moves, charisma, and a connection with the fans. Whether jumping off ladders with the Hardy Boys or going toe-to-toe with Trish, Lita became an icon. Together, Trish and Lita proved that women's matches could headline shows, even in an era dominated by male stars like Austin, Rock, and Triple H. Other stars of this time included Molly Holly, a clean-cut underdog who earned respect for her pure wrestling ability. She was so committed to her craft that at WrestleMania 20, she willingly shaved her head just to give the women's match more meaning. Victoria, another standout, combined power with athleticism. She was intense, skilled, and brought a toughness that pushed her matches above the rest. And Mickie James, who debuted in 2005, made an immediate impact with her storyline against Trish Stratus. Her unhinged character work and in-ring talent helped her become a 6-time champion and one of the most versatile women in WWE history. The Divas Era, 2007 to 2015. By the late 2000s, WWE shifted into what became known as the Divas Era. Women were marketed more for looks than wrestling ability, but in the middle of that, true stars still rose above. Beth Phoenix, the Glamazon, was one of them. With unmatched power, she dominated her opponents and became a multiple-time champion. She combined strength with technical skill, proving that women's wrestling didn't have to be a sideshow. Melina stood out with her athleticism, creativity, and one of the most memorable entrances of all time. Beyond the theatrics, she was a strong worker in the ring, delivering some of the best matches of her era. Michelle McCool became the first ever Divas champion. Alongside Lila, she formed the Lay Cool duo, which defined the women's division for years. They played villains perfectly and made fans care about their matches. AJ Lee then emerged as the anti-diva. She broke away from the cookie-cutter image and connected with fans through her personality, mic skills, and ability in the ring. AJ held the Divas Championship for a record 295 days and set the stage for change. Paige was the one who lit the spark. Debuting in 2014, she defeated AJ Lee on her first night to win the Divas Championship. Paige was also the first ever NXT Women's Champion, bringing the NXT style to the main roster. Her arrival marked the beginning of the Women's Revolution. The Women's Revolution, 2015 to present. Everything changed in 2015. Fans demanded better treatment of women's wrestling, and WWE responded by rebranding the division. The Divas term was dropped, and the women became true superstars. At the center were the four Horsewomen: Charlotte Flair, Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch, and Bayley. Charlotte Flair carried her father's name, but carved her own legacy. With over 14 women's championships, she is one of the most decorated stars in WWE history. Her athleticism and big match presence made her a centerpiece. Sasha Banks brought style and storytelling. Her matches against Bayley in NXT set a new standard. On the main roster, she made history as part of the first ever women's Hell in a Cell match. Becky Lynch went from overlooked to the man. In 2019, she headlined WrestleMania 35, defeating Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair to become the first woman to win both titles in one night. Bayley started as the ultimate underdog. Her journey in NXT made her one of the most beloved wrestlers. Later, her heel turn and record-breaking SmackDown Women's Championship reign showed her range. Then came Asuka, who arrived from Japan with an undefeated streak that lasted over 2 years. She won the Royal Rumble, Money in the Bank, and multiple championships, making her one of the most dominant stars in WWE history. Ronda Rousey, the former UFC champion, transitioned into WWE with instant star power. She debuted at WrestleMania and quickly became a champion, helping WWE present women as legitimate main event attractions. Bianca Belair rose as the EST of WWE. Her athleticism, charisma, and strength made her a breakout star. At WrestleMania 37, she defeated Sasha Banks in the first ever Black women's main event match at WrestleMania, a history-making moment. And today, Rhea Ripley has taken the mantle. As a powerhouse of the Judgment Day, she's one of WWE's most dominant figures, redefining what a top star looks like. Hall of Fame trailblazers. Alongside the in-ring stars, there are women whose influence stretched beyond matches. Mae Young wrestled across 8 decades, appearing in WWE even into her 70s and 80s. Jacqueline broke barriers for Black women in WWE, becoming both a women's champion and cruiserweight champion. Ivory brought experience from GLOW into WWE and became a multi-time champion. Tori Wilson and Sable may not have been wrestling standouts, but they brought massive mainstream attention during the Attitude Era,